All right, welcome to this divisional round edition of Ronde and Tiki presented by SuperBook. Ronde, two more dominoes fell in the coaching ranks. A little bit surprising. Pete Carroll, this happened early last week. Pete Carroll in Seattle, Bill Belichick kind of felt expected. You know, we could dissect their careers, but it's not worth doing it here. I think the bigger question is, do you see either one of these guys coaching again? Because it sounds like they both want to. Pete Carroll didn't go away saying, yeah, I'm happy to be retired. He's like, this was not a football people decision. It was kind of odd. But do you think they're done here?
No, be honest with you. Well, I'll say yes and no. I think Pete Carroll is probably done. I don't see him want to go to another organization and starting over and trying to recreate. People don't realize how hard it is when a head coach leaves to recreate what he had in the previous previous situation. I mean, it starts with coaches. I mean, first of all, to get your staff right, to really transfer your culture. I mean, that's years in the making, right? And then to uproot it and then try to get all those coaches to come away, it just doesn't work that way. So if you lose the head coach, you're really losing all the assistants as well. And I don't think he's ready for that. Now, Bill Belichick, I mean, he's basically said, I want another opportunity, and I want a team that's probably on the cusp, which is why he already interviewed in Atlanta. He's probably looking at Los Angeles Chargers as well. But yeah, I was surprised both these moves happened. No, I kind of thought they were coming. These were two of the 9 jobs that I thought were going to be open, and they eventually were.
Yeah, I think with Bill Belichick too, the question about filling out the staff is a little bit easier for him because he has a legion of disciples that are all over the league that have gone on and had their own head coaching opportunities or become defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators, and they have tentacles. So I think if Bill Belichick wants to go form a staff somewhere else, and I think Atlanta, in my estimation, is the most likely destination. And I only know this because Atlanta was willing to trade for Bill Belichick. So now that he's free, they're certainly going to be going all in. I think it'd be easy for him to get a staff back together. All right, let's get to the wild card round, Rondé. I mean, the upsets were big because a lot of the upsets were home teams, or at least the favorites that were losing. And the biggest one was the Cowboys. Now, I've been saying, them boys. What about them boys, right? I said something this.
I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh at the Cowboys fans. It's
just the reality of it.
It's becoming a punchline. I mean, right. I'm sorry.
And I said this thing, and you even got on me. I don't know what week it was, week 4 or 5 or 6 or something, about 99 out of 100 people would take Daniel Jones over Dak Prescott, and Cowboys fans came after me, but they missed my point. My point is that I know who Dak Prescott is. I don't know who Daniel Jones is. I've seen one decent season under Brian Dable and Mike Kafka that it projected like this big runway for Daniel Jones. But with Dak Prescott, it feels like it's the same thing over and over and over. Has this unbelievable regular seasons, but gets in moments and he turns into the same mistake-riddled guy, right? I'm going to stare down CeeDee Lamb. I know it's man coverage, but I can fit it in there. Oops, I can't, right? I think he's fine there, but he puts his coach on the hot seat, who fired his offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, took over the play calling, and it's the same thing back to back to back seasons. And I don't know what the solution is, and I don't think he knows what the solution is, which is why he's on the hot seat.
Well, I think there's only so much you can work with Dak. I mean, he's going to be immensely talented. He just is. He's got great arm. He's got great anticipation. He can make every single throw, but the moments are what matter, right? You get in moments, you win football games, and he doesn't capture the moments in the playoffs. And you could really say that for the whole team. I went back and watched this Packers game, and bravo to Matt LaFleur, dude. He played. Right. The team played great. They were disciplined on both sides of the ball. They had a succinct plan for how to beat Micah Parsons, which they executed, I thought, pretty well the entire game. And then Jordan Love was amazing. But when it comes to the Cowboys, I mean, we laugh about it a few minutes ago, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's been 30 years since the Cowboys were relevant in the postseason, and it just doesn't feel like they're ever going to get out of that rut with what they have going now. And I don't know what the changes are, to be honest with you. I don't know what makes a team that's that talented get over the edge. Clearly, it's not what they have in place right now. But I mean, I think the bigger statement here is the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
Just the way that Matt LaFleur got his team to play, and the emergence over the last 10 weeks of Jordan Love is pretty transitional. I mean, it's just he made a case for himself to be a top 10 quarterback in this league in the last 10 weeks of the season, and it showed in this playoff game. I mean, he was damn near perfect in this playoff game, and that'll bode well for them in the divisional round.
Yeah, not to get deep into the schematics, but we know what success is. It's you either have superior talent, guys just Debo you, right? Like San Francisco does, literally. That's his name. Like you just Debo guys, or you scheme it. And Matt LaFleur schemed some wide open looks for Jordan Love, who had some pressure, right? He took some hits, stood in the pocket and threw these balls, but the scheme was amazing. And you layer that with the fact that they're the youngest team in the NFL, the youngest team ever to win a playoff game. They're barely 25 years old collectively. All of their receiving talent are first or second year players. And they have these guys that can just clear it out and run the digs underneath, Romeo Dobbs. It's special what they can be, not just this year. I mean, they're going to have to catch the 49ers, but this year, but for years to come, the Packers with Jordan Love are going to be really compelling. I mean, they're going to be fun. I'm not a Packer fan, but they're going to be fun to watch. All right, Rondé, you called this about the Browns. I guess I wanted to believe in the talent of Joe Flacco, right? I wanted to believe that he would figure it out with a great defense and, the ability to get after it. But the reality is the Browns defense was great at home. On the road, they gave up a ton of points week over week over week, and it was no different against the Houston Texans and who I think is the coach of the year, DeMeco Ryans. But the interceptions were the issue for Joe Flacco. You can't give extra opportunities for a young and up-and-comer like C.J. Stroud.
Well, I think the reality is that we saw this all 6 games that Joe Flacco played in this year. He's a risk taker. He throws some ill-advised and kind of reckless passes, and it showed. He had I think 8 interceptions in 5 games going into this game. He threw 2 more in this game, 1 for a touchdown. It's what he was. He was a high risk, kind of high reward, but ultimately going to get you type of player. And there's a reason why Joe Flacco was sitting on his couch for much of the season. I mean, there's things about him that you love, but there's also his inability to protect the football that you just can't stomach in the playoffs. I knew this was coming. I mean, obviously you give a lot of credit to Bobby Slowick and the scheme that the Houston Texans came into. I mean, if you watch that game, and I know everybody did because it was a playoff game, the motions and the double moves that they put on like a really good defense was spot on. They had a plan to beat a really good pass rush in Cleveland and take advantage of their DBs, and it executed perfectly. And obviously, I mean, this guy CJ is redefining what a rookie quarterback is going to be capable of doing. He's going to be every quarterback from now for the next decade is going to be judged on this year. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to top it. No. The Browns are just the Browns, man. I knew they were on the verge of this type of game happening to them, and it took a pretty damn good performance by Houston for it to show itself.
Yeah, no, Houston just dominated this game in every aspect of it, offensively, even defensively. They made the plays that you have to. It'll be interesting when we start talking about the Baltimore game because there's some flaws that get masked by a 45-point game and a blowout the way that it was.
Oh, sure.
Right. There's some flaws that get masked when you're that good. But at the same time, this is hardly one we're talking about because it was hardly a game and for most of it. The last one, Rondé, was the Bucs. Now, these are the Philadelphia Eagles who we've been saying for weeks have had issues going on. We know defensively they're compromised. Right. Both of their corner play, by the way, in the NFL has been horrendous, especially in the postseason. Guys don't want to tackle. They're out of position in coverage. But the Philadelphia Eagles were particularly exposed here. Now, it's important to remember, like you go back to the beginning of the season, the Eagles thought that James Bradbury and Slay weren't going to be there. right? They thought they were going to have to start over with young players, and they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson and some other pieces on that defense. So we shouldn't be surprised at the defensive struggles that started to materialize as the season went on. But the more alarming part is it that easy to figure out Jalen Hurts now? It almost feels like teams have said, all right, you're not going to run. I mean, he did have 15 touchdowns. He ran a lot, but it didn't feel as impactful this year as it was a year ago when Jalen Hurts would take off and break your back. He didn't feel impactful this year.
Well, I think the injury had something to do with that all
right.
year long. But I mean, the reality is you can't do that if you're Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have that kind of swiftness. He's not Josh Allen. He doesn't have that kind of size. He's an effective runner, but he's not a guy that can win games running all the time. And plus, they believe that he's got an A+ type of arm. I would argue that it's like a B+ kind of arm because in this game was a complete masterclass by Todd Bowles and his defense. I swear to God, Tiki, there was 20 new defenses that Todd Bowles drew up for this game, particularly a 6-man front, 4 defensive linemen, 2 outside linebackers, only 3 DBs on the field. They ran it like 20 times in this game. And they said, we are not going to let the Eagles and DeAndre Swift run for 201 yards like they did early in the year and beat us. And so they stacked the box and they blitzed zero 9 times, Tiki. Wow. 9 times. On the first third down of the game, it was 0. On the first second down of the game, it was 0. They said Jalen Hurts beat us without A.J. Brown, and they could not do that. And so a 3-point, they were 3-point dogs. The Bucs were at home. But when you really look at the kind of the momentum going into this game, down, losing 5 of 6 going in, Bucs having won 5 of 6 going in, this wasn't a surprise for me. You need to win one game in the playoffs, right? You only ever need to win one game when you're in the playoffs. And the Bucs came up with 1 win against a team that was just
right. And Nick Sirianni, they looked like they didn't want to play at points. And Nick Sirianni's got to have some questions to answer. This is why he's also on the hot seat with Mike McCarthy in the NFC East, because he did some stupid things. You score a touchdown, get a penalty on the Buccaneers, you get down. And by the way, you're down 7. Just kick the extra point, and you're down 6. Therefore, if you score a touchdown, then you're up 1. Instead, he decides to go for 2 for hubris reasons, right? Stupid, excessive pride reasons. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to go for the tush push. Little did he realize that Vita Vea in the middle of that defense, and I forget who else.
It was actually Greg. It was
Greg Gaines. Greg Gaines gets under and stones Jason Kelsey, and then KJ Britt comes flying over the top and pulls back Jalen Hurts, and the tush push, the unstoppable tush push, gets stoned. And I feel like, Ronnie, that stole any momentum that the Eagles had.
Well,
right? It was a coaching decision that stalled all momentum.
Yeah, there was that one, and there was also a 4th and 5. They kicked a field goal. We lined up in the neutral zone, so they got 5 more yards. It was 4th and 10, and then they got 5 more yards. He decides to go for it again. Tries to throw a desperation pass. Hurts did to into the end zone, defended. Now all of a sudden, Tampa gets the momentum back and goes right down and scores. Like he had some. I don't want to call him bonehead, but I think you nailed it with it's the hubris. It's sometimes being a head coach is about taking points, especially in a playoff game. Take the points, dude. Take the points. Make it interesting. And he just refuses to do that.
Yeah, and so that's why. Just like in Dallas with Mike McCarthy, it hasn't happened as of our taping, but both of those guys are on the hot seats, likely going through their exit interviews and being asked questions about what went wrong, despite starting the season 10-1, the Philadelphia Eagles did, or in the case of the Cowboys, winning 12 games for the 3rd straight season and having the futility of not reaching a championship game. Very few teams in NFL history have faced that kind of failure. Let's get to these games, Rondé, these divisional round games. And the first one is the most interesting one, to be honest with you. We talked about Houston already. Baltimore Ravens had a bye week. They are a big favorite in this game. At home, obviously, they have home field throughout. 9-point favorites, the Houston Texans, are dogs to the Baltimore Ravens. And look, this is a tale of quarterbacks. It's an awesome matchup, right? CJ Stroud, the upstart, the rookie, the stud, and Lamar Jackson, who's likely to win his second MVP in his very short career. I mean, he's barely 26. He's about to be 27 years old. And, I think this is a tale of two different philosophies, because CJ Stroud in this Houston offense, it feels more like traditional, right? They want to run the football. They're going to do some play action. They're going to take shots down the field. They probably take a little too many shots down the field. Whereas Baltimore, it's become the Lamar Jackson show. For the first time in maybe, I think, ever, an MVP is going to have a non-1,000-yard receiver and a non-1,000-yard rusher. In fact, Lamar is the leading rusher on this team. It's really all about him. As you measure this one out, did the Houston Texans, as good as they've been, they have enough to stop one of the best teams that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years?
I would say the Houston Texans have to figure out Mike Macdonald's defense. Look, you've said this all year long about Mike Macdonald really doing things in a different fashion than we've seen in Baltimore. I mean, when Wink was there the past 3 years, I mean, it was, well, we're just going to bring the house and make quarterbacks make mistakes. We have Marlon Humphrey. We have good players in the secondary. We're going to let them make the plays. This guy, Mike Macdonald, is much more calculated. He's much more sound in the things that he does, and it's very hard to fool him. Plus, you have good players. Lead the league in sacks, 60 sacks this year. I think they're top 3 or 4 in takeaways.
Oh, they lead the league, Rondé.
Lead the league in takeaways, right? Yeah, lead the league in takeaways. That's right. They're top 3 or 4 in turnover differential.
Yes.
But Mike Macdonald has really been the class of the NFL in terms of defensive coordinator. You could probably make that argument with Spagnuolo too, but to me, it was Mike Macdonald because they have all the talent in the world, and it materialized on the football field. So, what do the Houston Texans need to do? They need to have a game where C.J. Stroud completes 75% of his passes and throws for 3 or 4 TDs. Now, is that going to happen? I doubt it.
Right.
Because this Baltimore defense has a lot more going for it than the Cleveland defense is. And I know they had Myles Garrett, probably the defensive player of the year. They have one of the top pass defenses in the league. But this unit, to me, Baltimore's is the better of those defenses. So how do you beat it?
Well,
die slow, dude.
Right.
This is one of those games. If you're Houston, die slow.
Yeah.
You get a game at the end and you give yourself a chance.
Right. And CJ Stroud has done that. He's been good at that, leading game-winning drives in the fourth quarter as a rookie. But the one thing that gives me a little bit of alarm about the Houston Texans, and it's hidden because you don't see it. Like you see the Nico Collins, you see the CJ Stroud, you see Devin Singletary, you see all the good things, Will Anderson on the defensive side of the ball. They are not very good on third down, and especially in 3rd and long. And part of this is Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator. Like he likes to take shots on 3rd down, and it's just low efficiency. They're 19th in the league, 37 or whatever it is percentage. They're
feels like wasted snaps, right?
It's like you know that has a very low probability of converting. And if you don't convert and stay on the field against the Baltimore Ravens, the league leading rushing team is going to destroy you because they'll 1,000 cut you to death. And eventually Lamar Jackson's going to throw some crazy, I don't know, bomb down the sideline to Isaiah Likely or Odell Beckham, or hell, they get Mark Andrews back for this game potentially. So if you don't stay on the field in the Houston Texans, then you're going to be in trouble because the last thing you can afford to do is get behind. This team gets after the quarterback. You said they led the league in sacks. Madubuike is a 3 technique, and he's not like this explosive. He's not Aaron Donald, but he's there. And so if you hold on to the football, he's going to find you and sack you. He had led the team with 13 sacks, and Jadeveon Clowney he's getting off the ball despite his advanced age. And in the secondary, Reno Stone and Kyle Hamilton lead this team in interceptions. They will take advantage of you if you're not sound. So you're right about Mike Macdonald's defense, but it's because they have players over there that ball. And CJ Stroud can't play like a rookie. And more importantly, they have to convert. Otherwise, I think they get run away in this game. As I look to handicap it, it's hard for me to take this line for Baltimore. So I'm going to believe in CJ Stroud because he's surprised me at every turn, right? He's played above the expectation at every turn. I don't know if they can win this game because Baltimore is just so good on offense and defense. So I'll take Houston with the points, but I think Baltimore finds a way to win this game.
Yeah, 9-point favorite. Baltimore is at home, and that probably feels right to me. That feels like the right number. I do think they win the football game. It's plus 340 if you're a Houston fan and you want to, press your luck. That's a pretty nice number. but I agree with you, Tiki. The reality is the better team on paper. The better team is the Baltimore Ravens. You didn't even mention Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen at linebacker.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They have dominant players at multiple positions on defense, and I think that neutralizes a young quarterback to some degree. Now, can CJ Stroud surprise us? Absolutely, he can surprise us, and I wouldn't be shocked if DeMeco Ryans has probably one of those coach of the year type moments in this football game because he's shown the ability to do that. And this is they're a hot team coming in, so there could be that. But I'm with you on this one, and we're going to agree that Baltimore is certainly the winner of this football game. But the numbers, the Vegas numbers on this one are pretty interesting.
Right. Last thing on this before we go take a break and get back to the other games, the pressure of being the number one seed, Rondé.
Yeah, great question.
Baltimore has not performed well in the postseason. Lamar has not performed well but he knows it. He even talks about it. Lamar. Yeah. This year is going to be different. Do you trust that it's going to be different?
Right. So you nailed it, dude. Being a number one seed, the same thing we'll talk about with San Francisco in our next game. But Lamar has lost 3 or 4 playoff games. That's hard to believe considering, what he's done during the regular season. And this is his next opportunity, I should say, to back up what has always been great regular season performance with finally doing something in a postseason. And to be honest with you, they have the right opponent. It's an upstart team. Right, they're playing the right team. It's an upstart team with a rookie head coach who's never done that before, with a rookie quarterback, with a first-time play caller, and Bobby Slowik. Like, they have the opportunity to win this. It would be very disappointing, I think, for a lot of people if Baltimore doesn't win this football game. But that's why they play. You're in a one-game tournament. That's all you ever are in the playoffs. One-game tournament.
That's exactly right. All right, we'll come back. We're going to talk about game 2, which is the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. That one's going to be exciting. You got some familiarity with both of those teams. But don't forget, it's time for the postseason as the race for the big game in Vegas is on. There's no better place to wager on all of it than SuperBook Sports. When you sign up, deposit, and wager in the same day, SuperBook will give you a bonus of up to $250. Plus, SuperBook Sports gives you the chance to compete against Vegas. They don't have ridiculous computer formulas making their odds. It's just a team of the world's best odds makers on site in Las Vegas. When the sports world is busy, it's time to get busy winning some money. So download the SuperBook Sports app or visit superbook.com today to wager and win. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, segment 2 of your divisional round, Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBooks. Tiki, let's get right into these games. First one, Green Bay Packers and San Francisco 49ers. We're going to do this game and Detroit and save, I think, what will be the game of the week, which is KC at Buffalo for last. But first, Green Bay. Look, this one has so many intricate layers to it because of the relationship of the head coaches. I'm going to start there. Kyle Shanahan hired Matt LaFleur in Washington and Atlanta, and they have this, I don't know, kismet type relationship. And yet they get to play each other in the playoffs this year. And I find this game to be fascinating. Again, we can talk about, the San Francisco 49ers having that bye week. And I think one thing about bye weeks with Kyle Shanahan, it gives him time to be mad scientist. And the dude is mad scientist. And he's going up against a team that really they should beat. They should beat the Green Bay Packers. I know the Green Bay Packers shocked the world. Everybody's going to be high on them if you're a Green Bay fan after beating Dallas. But the reality is the San Francisco 49ers, Tiki, to me, are the best team in football. Not only from personnel perspective, but from a coaching perspective. Right. They have everything that you would want to be a championship team. John Lynch has missed on some picks, but he's nailed some and found a way to mitigate all those picks that he missed on, and it showed itself in their season this year, even though they went through a slow stretch. I think this is probably going to be one of the more interesting games of the weekend. Give me your take. Green Bay is plus 350 on the road, right. And this is the biggest line of the weekend, Tiki. This is 9.5 San Francisco favorites.
Yeah, this is again, it's a huge line. And look, I know that San Francisco is going to score points. You know, Brock Purdy's just been too good. He is what he is, and you think he's, you know, Mr. Irrelevant, and just eventually, you know, the Piper's going to come to roost. I don't think so. I think that he is destined to be a top quarterback in this league for a while because of all the talent that he has. I think the biggest thing about the bye week, Rondé, is it gives Christian McCaffrey, who had a calf injury, a chance to get a little bit more healthy. And he's going to play regardless because that's just that dude. But I think if he's healthy and feels strong again, then this San Francisco team is dynamic. So it's going to be a question to me of whether or not the Green Bay Packers can keep up. And the one thing that you noticed in the Cowboys game, Rondé, and you said this, they had a plan for Micah Parsons. Like, they just frustrated the hell out of him. Yes, they cut him, right? The split zone in the run game, they ran it down their throat, right? Green Bay can make you start thinking about, man, who's coming to chop me, right? Who's coming to cut me? And with Nick Bosa as this long striding edge rusher, like he gets into that like sprinter stance and just flies out of there. It gets on you and around the to the quarterback so quickly because of his strides. You have to have a plan for that. I trust Green Bay to have a plan for that. The other thing, you talk about the secondary and the defense, second and third levels for the 49ers. The Packers are uniquely qualified to stretch that apart, right? You see it with Christian Watson, who you have to respect. Like, you saw the Cowboys dedicating like 2 or 3 guys to him anytime he was running those clear routes. Right? He's just trying to clear out for the dig that's coming underneath. But they got 3 guys, clattered around him because that Jordan Love, if you mess up and just leave him a little bit free, the ball's going up. And he has the arm to get it there. So I think that the Green Bay Packers can keep pace. But to me, it's going to be about running the football, just like it was against Dallas. Aaron Jones has to be the most important player, like he was a week ago for the Green Bay Packers, just like Christian McCaffrey is going to be the most important player for the San Francisco 49ers.
I couldn't agree with you more. The formula for the Packers to win this game is the exact same formula that they used last week, and that is don't play from behind. If they get behind, they're done. And you know for a fact that it was a great game plan versus Dallas because Dak Prescott threw for 403 yards, and it wasn't a game. And this game was 26-0. That game was 26-0 at some point. Yeah. Joe Barry's much maligned defense for the Packers. They had 2 interceptions. Jair Alexander had 2 interceptions. They had another interception for a touchdown. Like, that has to materialize. But I don't know that materializes with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy doesn't seem to make those mistakes unless you're able to get great pressure on him. And I don't think that the Green Bay Packers have the ability to do that. I think when you talk about Christian McCaffrey, obviously he's going to play. He's a robot. I don't know how to describe the guy. He's not real. He's not a real person. But he's a great football player. Green Bay rush defense, I think 29th in the league.
Yeah,
like they're not effective versus the run. They have good, talented players on defense. They have a really talented group.
Yeah.
They don't know how to stop the run. And I can see Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, all these iterations of the run game that Kyle Shanahan can draw up, and having 2 weeks to get ready for this game, just being kind of a bloodbath in that regard. So, look, 9.5 points seems like the right number for me. San Francisco at home, they have high expectations. Green Bay didn't really have these type of expectations coming into the year. They've garnered them because they got on a hot streak. They won 7 of their last 9, including wins versus Detroit and Kansas City. So they're hot. But San Francisco is the team here, and I think they're the class of the NFC. And this is just a stepping stone before they get to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, it's almost like the Cowboys were so flawed that it just took like a scrappy young squad could beat them. Right. Whereas the 49ers aren't flawed.
No.
Can they be beat? Yeah, sure. Anybody can beat. It's the National Football League, for Christ's sakes. But they're not going to be sleepwalking. They're not going to come in like the Cowboys did. And hey, we've been doing this all year. It's going to work for us this week. No, no. And I know that's what Mike McCarthy was saying. We're going to do what we did all year because you heard it in the broadcast. And so if it's heard in the broadcast, that's because a coach, likely Mike McCarthy, told them, told the crew that. And so you needed something special for that moment, and he didn't have it. San Francisco will have something special for their moment because Kyle Shanahan is obsessed. He's obsessed with details, and that's what makes him so good. It's what makes their offense so unique. And so, I mean, it's a huge number. And usually, I would say there's no chance I'm going against that. And I'd give some love to Green Bay. I gotta go with San Francisco here, even though it's 9.5. I think this could be a 2-touchdown win for them.
Right,
and easily they could just start pulling away in this game.
Jordan Love was one completion away from having a perfect passer rating last week. But in my mind, it's Brock Purdy's time to shine. So that's what I'm going to say. And I think that's what happens. All right, Tiki. Game 3 of the weekend, and big congrats to you. You won. Our only disagreement last week was this Detroit Los Angeles Rams game. So congratulations.
I'll give credit to LA. They were tough as hell, bro. Right? They came to play. This was this was like a tale of two games. The first half was like an offensive juggernaut. Let's the haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, and then it became let's play defense, right? Let's duck and move, and like it became a defensive battle in the second half. I mean, only 9 points in the second half. And as much as I love Sean McVay, and I love, like, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, and they won 10 games and got to the playoffs. The decision to punt on 4th and 14.
I know. But what are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do? You got to play smart ball in that situation, or it's over. Which it ended up being over anyways. But it is what it is. You could dissect that for days. Let's talk about Tampa and Detroit, though, Tiki. 6.5-point favorites. Detroit Lions are at home. First time they've been back-to-back playoff games at home in their since 1957, whatever.
A long time ago.
Right, long time ago. Last time these teams placed, Tiki, ironically, was my rookie year, 1997. Bucs won 20-10, neutralized Barry Sanders. I did not play in that game, but I remember watching that.
Yeah.
There are some coincidences in this game that we got to talk about real quick. 2 former number 1 picks, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, playing on different teams in redemptive type situations. However, I got a question for you. What do both of those players have in common with Vinny Testaverde, Peyton Manning, and Alex Smith?
That's a good question. I have no idea. What do they have in common?
Former number 1 picks that have led 2 teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff took 2 teams and now to the playoffs, and he took one of those teams to the Super Bowl.
Right. So I thought that was good trivia. Nobody
that is some pretty good trivia. I mean, Baker's got more, postseasons now than the Cleveland Browns, victories in the Cleveland Browns since he's been there. And one of those was with the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. So, I mean, Baker's been fantastic. But I got to start with my dude, Dan. I don't know if you've seen the rounds, the social media rounds of Dan back in his Hard Knock days. Just like, there's something about like how he coaches and the things that he says and what he means when he says these things. Because they showed this clip, and it was clearly training camp because there was people in the stands, and it was sweaty and it was hot and he was yelling. He's like, "Just, you guys got to trust me, right? I'm doing this for you, right? I have a plan. I dream about you all the time." Like, it's like this specific plan. It might have been 2 years ago when they weren't even that good. I don't think they made the playoffs, but like, he's had this vision of what he wants his team to look like. The whole knee biting thing it's like a cliche now, related to him. But you see this team, like, they play hard, right? But they also are tough. And it's because he puts pads on. And I didn't realize this, Rondé, until I did the Saints game. And Dennis Allen put pads on. And I just started reading the rules. You can't have pads on 3 days in the last, 5 weeks of the NFL season. You have 3 padded practices. That's it. I'm like, what kind of soft shit is this? Like, what in the hell is going on?
But I'm not even giving the T. That's just soft.
Yeah, right. And so you wonder why tackling suffers in the NFL, because you don't do it. right? You know, these guys don't practice it. Anyways,
they don't even thud up. They can't even thud up.
They don't have pads on, right? They got shells on, if anything, or going through walkthroughs. And it's like, okay, all right, whatever. But anyways, so I feel like this Dan Campbell-led team and Brad Holmes constructed team is perfectly suited for Detroit and for the kind of man that Dan is, right? These guys are tough, but they're ballers, right? When you hear people talk about, oh, what happened with Detroit? They got some ballers, dude. Dave Montgomery is a baller. Jahmyr Gibbs is a baller. Right on the other side of the ball, Aiden Hutchinson, he's a baller. They have guys that step up to the occasion, but they also have the mentality of their head coach. And so credit goes to those players because they're the ones that are actually on the field. But the mentality was stomped into them by Dan Campbell. And I feel like in so many ways on the other side of this game, Baker Mayfield kind of brings that as well. Right? If there's one thing that you can't deny about Baker is that he has this aura about him. Like he's so aware of moments. And you talked about it before, right? Dak doesn't make the play in the moment. Baker is aware of the moment and he lives it. And more importantly, he has fun with it. And I think that's why these guys gravitate towards him.
Well, not only that, he's actually kind of talented. I mean, people tend to dismiss the fact that he's really freaking talented. Dude won a Heisman Trophy, and not like a fluke Heisman Trophy. He won the hell out of that Heisman Trophy. #1 draft pick after being too short, too whatever, rejected at Texas Tech, goes to Oklahoma. I mean, guy is all he does is win. He wasn't even a starting quarterback when he first got to high school, dude, and all he does is win. We've mentioned it, I think 3 times now on this show. Capturing moments matters when you're starting quarterback, and his teammates, I can promise you this, will do anything for him. Right. Like he is he's a meathead with the offensive lineman when he needs to be. He can be a diva with the wide receivers. He can be a grunt with the defensive linemen. Like you go into their locker room and it's like there's one reason why this team is where they are, and it's him. Obviously, Todd Bowles give him a ton.
They're also talented. Right? They're talented.
Well, I think that's what people have dismissed about this team all year when they said they were going to win 3 games. Dude, they won the NFC South. Yes, it's weak. Who cares? People said they were going to win 3 games. The reality is, go look at their roster. Their roster is deep and talented, man. On defense, they have 3 or 4 all-pro players: Levante David, Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea. You got a great young pass rusher in Yaya Diaby, who's just coming on. Kalijah Kancey, their first pick of the draft, is going to be a freaking stud. He's going to be a stud. Like, and you go look at offense, Godwin, Mike Evans, Rachaad White came into his own. You have the best left tackle in football, or at least one of the best left tackles in football, and Tristan Wirfs. Like, why are you surprised that they're good?
Right, Gedeke was a guard. Gedeke was a bad guard. It's a pretty good tackle.
Good tackle.
You got an angry wide receiver and Trey Palmer, 1 catch, 1 touchdown.
Right. It's a fun team to watch because they're so discounted. That's the interesting thing about this game, because Detroit, obviously 6.5-point favorites, going to this game, they've always been underdogs. Like they've been the underdog story all year long. At least that's what they're perpetuating, that we're the underdogs. The reality is they're actually pretty damn good. And they were good at the end of last year. They've been good the entirety of this year. Jared Goff, 5 incompletions in that game last week against the Rams. When these two teams played earlier, and this is another narrative to this football game. The Bucs avenged their early loss to Philly last week. They lost to Detroit 20-6, I think in week 6 this week, and Jared Goff threw for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so the Bucs are going in thinking we got another revenge opportunity, and there's power in that, right? Baker Mayfield last week threw for 337 yards, I think, and 3 touchdowns. He's the 4th quarterback in Bucs history, right, to throw for 300 yards in a game. Do you know who the other 3 were?
I'm going to assume Tom Brady.
Tom Brady in the last 3 seasons. So, like, give credit where it's due. We started talking about Baker. Give credit where it's due. But where this is going to hinge, Tiki.
All right, hold on real quick. I would say this team is better this year with Baker than with Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
I mean, and this is not a knock on Tom Brady. Their run game is different with Baker.
Yes. Yeah, because they can do more. They can be more mobile quarterback. Right. But I would say, Tiki, this team. Let's get back to this game. This is going to hinge on how Todd Bowles draws up his defense. Last week, they did a lot of different things on defense. This week, they have to find a way to recreate the pressure that they got on Jalen Hurts, on Jared Goff. He is a different quarterback when you get pressure on him. And knowing that he had a field day with them in week 6, I believe that's where this game is going to be decided. But that being said, Detroit is really talented. We didn't talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, when they needed to win that game last week, they didn't go to run the ball in 4-minute offense with a lead. They threw the ball. Right. They trusted Jared Goff. And I thought it was a very poignant moment in the locker room when Dan Campbell gave him the ball and said, "You're good enough for us." That was awesome. Like, that's about Dan Campbell, to run this all the way back to where this conversation started. Dan Campbell is an awesome coach, and he's got his team playing. So do I believe it's 6.5 is the right number? No, I think this game is closer than that. Bucs got a great kicker. Todd Bowles can put together a defense for one game. I think this is probably like a 3-point game. It's going to be a good one in the early window on Sunday.
Yeah, I can't see this one getting run away from, because you're right about Todd Bowles. And like, so many people have these like conceptions about him. Oh, he just plays zone. It's like, nah, I do blitzes a lot, man. Right? Because we have this like belief that Tampa is just this zone Tampa 2 team. I'm like, that was Rondé's era. Right. That is not this era. This is not this team. It's not how they're constructed. And they will get after you whether they need the blitz or they don't. And so I agree with you again. I think we're going to see a lot of these games the same way. I don't think they can run away from Tampa unless Baker starts making mistakes. That is the one thing this season that has been the Achilles heel. When Baker gets like flustered, when he doesn't see it clearly, when he starts pressing, that's when this team makes mistakes and they lose football games. Right? They had a November to forget, and ultimately they got back in it and were able to win the division. But there was moments in November where it felt like, oh, this Bucs team, everybody's getting fired here. Right. So, but I agree with you. I think this is a tight game. This feels like a field goal game to me, last second type of win. So as much as I love Dan Campbell and they may win this game, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting 6.5 points in this game.
Well, I'm a homer. I'm taking the 220 on the money line too.
Money line. Let's see it. It's not a bad bet, actually. All right, we'll come back in segment 3 for the last games of this wild card weekend. But first, you can refer a friend and earn a $50 bonus this season with SuperBook Sports. SuperBook is the most trusted name in sports wagering, and you don't want to miss their Refer a Friend bonus. All you need to do is click on the Refer a Friend link under your profile in the SuperBook app, share the promo code with your friends, and you'll get $50 bonus for everyone who registers using your code. That's $50 for everyone. So if it's 2, it's $100. If it's 5, it's $250. So win money wagering and then win some money referring this season with SuperBook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBook. Last game of the weekend, Ronde. This is the CBS game. Seems like Romo and Nance are always in Buffalo. They always go to this game. Always.
They don't ever have to do any work. They cover the same 5 teams all year long.
Right. We got Kansas City. We got Buffalo. Maybe we'll do Miami here or there. If the Jets are interesting, we'll throw it in there.
Yeah, we'll throw a Jets game in there just because we think Aaron Rodgers. Oh, he's not in there. Anyway, we'll talk about how bad they are.
Right. Just a real quick recap on last week. These were the cold games last weekend.
Oh my God.
Kansas City was dangerous. I mean, there were some people that were hospitalized with frostbite after that one. So prayers to those people that went to that game. A lot of people in the upper deck bowed out of it because the wind in Arrowhead is ridiculous, that high. But Miami they weren't ready for the moment. They didn't have any answers. Defensively, they couldn't get off the field, and offensively, they looked soft. Right? I want to give credit for their regular season, but I mean. Right. We kind of knew that they were fraudish.
Hey, jokingly, me and Mike T used to always have a saying, coldest coach loses, and Mike McDaniel was freezing.
Yeah.
Andy Reid had frost on his mustache and didn't flinch. I mean, obviously he has a lot more to work with.
He has more heft.
to keep himself warm.
Right.
But yeah, man, coldest coach loses, bro. And Miami is not a cold weather team.
Real quickly, we saw that Buffalo and the Bills and the Bills just handled the Steelers. The game could have been much worse than it actually was. You saw some fumbling. Pickens had a fumble in that one that immediately, next play was a touchdown that made it 14-0. But Najee Harris said something earlier this week about like discipline and things need to change internally. Now we know that Mike Tomlin is coming back. They announced it on Monday or Tuesday that he was going to be back for the last year of his contract. He is a lame duck coach. We speculated last week that he might like peace out and go into the media for a second. I know that Mike is like serious about the details, but what's Najee referring to? Because it feels, I know what he said, I know what he's talking about, because it feels like, you know, you're Pat Freiermuth and you catch a ball, you got it in the right arm, but then you hit with that arm and the ball fumbles. Luckily, replay doesn't overturn it. The game could have been over in the first quarter if that had happened.
Right.
But it feels like there's little things that disciplined teams do well that they don't do. You know what I mean?
I'll answer that in one sentence: accountability, and they're lacking it. And it's not necessarily the head coach accountability, because you don't have enough players to bench a George Pickens or a Freiermuth or make a statement, because they're just not talented enough. Like, that has to come from the players. That type of accountability, like when you have the ball in your hand, you hold the hopes and dreams of the entire team, no matter what position you play. If you have the ball in your hand, you hold the hopes and dreams of the entire team with you. And if you let it go, you're just throwing away your hopes and dreams. And Pittsburgh, we talked about this, needed to play a perfect game to beat Buffalo, and they didn't even come close to it. And yet they still made this a game. And that is where you need to start with this discussion about this AFC divisional game versus Kansas City. Buffalo, as good as they are, and as many things as they do well, and Josh Allen being Superman when he needs to be, like all the time now, they can make games close. This game is 2.5 points for a reason to Buffalo at home. And it's because Kansas City has their number. Tiki, if you look at this matchup, yes, they're 3-3, Mahomes versus Allen in their careers, but Kansas City is 2-0 in the playoffs, and they've been some good games. But for whatever reason, Buffalo is very good at getting close and not being able to make it. Kansas City's been to 5 straight AFC Championship games.
Yep.
Buffalo's been to 3 straight divisional games and lost. So there is something to be said here about being able to be your best when you need to be your best. And if Buffalo's not their best this week, they're losing to Kansas City, because Kansas City, like we said last week, Tiki, been there, done that. Patrick Mahomes knows how to win. Andy Reid obviously knows how to coach. He's one of the best coaches of our generation now. And he's consistently found ways to beat teams that want to play close. And Buffalo is that team.
Yeah, the X factor here is that as crazy as it sounds, Pat Mahomes has not played a road playoff game in his career. What in the heck
that had to end. Thankfully, that ended, because that was just stupid.
This is the first road playoff game of his career. Now, thankfully for, I guess, all of our viewership, we're not going to have the snowstorm that we had last week and the delay that pushed the game till Monday. It is still going to be cold, but it's nothing that the Kansas City Chiefs aren't used to. And so when I try to break this game down, and as much as I want to see Kansas City be that team, it feels like Buffalo has turned into the team that we thought they were supposed to be at the beginning of the season, right? They run the ball when they have to. Josh Allen seems fearless dropping back. He's got 2 tight ends that are dynamic, and it's almost like he doesn't even need Stephon Diggs, even though obviously it helps. And when I look at it from the Kansas City side, if Isaiah Pacheco can't get going, if their run game can't get going, I feel like Pat Mahomes turns into a presser, right? We've seen that in some of the games that they've lost this year, that he just starts pressing. Like he makes throws that he's always made, but he just doesn't have the guys on the receiving end. There's no Tyreek Hills anymore, right? There's not even, what's his name? Watson, that used to be there. Like, there's not the veterans there. It's Reese Rice, who was fantastic last weekend. But if you have a plan to take him away, it's now on Travis Kelce. And so I think the advantage here goes to the home team. As much as this game is going to be elite and the game of the weekend, the home team has the advantage. One, because of the travel. Two, because of the home crowd, and the Buffalo Bill fans are going to be there. They were in force and sitting on snow on Monday on that rescheduled game. But I also think that it's like Josh Allen has been revitalized by Joe Brady. And, he deked the hell out of the Steelers with that, like, I'm going to slow down and slide. Instead, I'm just going to sprint past you, non-tackling asses, and go 50 yards for a touchdown. But I think the advantage here is to the Bills. And I wouldn't have said that 5 weeks ago.
Right. I will say this, though. I take a quick glance at the injury report. They're already hurting a linebacker. Terrell Dotson's on the injury report. Terrell Bernard's on the injury report.
Right.
Christian Benford's corners on the injury report. Rasul Douglas is on the injury report. Taron Johnson, the kind of all do everything linebacker Nichols on the injury report. Taylor Rapp is on the injury report. Like, who's playing defense for Buffalo? I mean, they won that game against Pittsburgh, but they took a beating on the wrong side of the ball. When Kansas City gets going on offense, whoever Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball to, we say it again. You only have to win one game. In a moment, if I'm picking any of these quarterbacks to win one game, of all 6 teams or 8 teams that are remaining, the one guy I want is Patrick Mahomes. And I know that he doesn't have the options at receiver, but I'll take him in a game like this. This is going to be like fascinating football game. I mean, I can't wait till Sunday night. I got a golf thing I'm doing this weekend. I get to watch a little bit of football. I cannot wait till Sunday night. I'm sitting on my couch watching this football game, sitting here wondering if 125 is the number to take. Do I want to spend 100 to get 25 against the Buffalo Bills and Patrick Mahomes at quarterback? I might.
Yeah.
But 2.5 points. There's a reason this game is under a field goal in this game. I don't think they really know what's going to happen.
This feels like a push. This feels like a push, Rondé. Like the home team respect, but not quite enough respect to give you the full 3. So it's a field goal game. This one, to me, just kind of like the Tampa Bay game. I think it's coming down to the end, and I'm going to give the advantage to the home team. So I'm going to take Buffalo laying the 2.5.
I'm going to take Kansas City just so we disagree, brother.
Just one of them. All right, we'll be back next week in our lead up to the championship games. Maybe we'll see if Rondé's right. Another championship game in Arrowhead. Can you imagine if they win? They're going to 6 straight home championships. It doesn't make any damn sense. They're a dynasty. Anyways, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Ronde and Tiki, presented by SuperBook.
The Ronde and Tiki Podcast is produced by SuperBook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Maryland, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, and Tennessee. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF or visit 800betsoff.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342.